Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. We're waiting for everyone who's registered to get connected. So sit tight and we'll get started in just about a minute. Thanks. Okay, welcome everybody to the webinar today. I appreciate you joining us. Our presentation today is Next Gen ERP featuring Sage Intacct. My name is Tom Thornton and I'll introduce myself formally in just a second. Just a little bit about our webinar today. It's going to be about 45 minutes, so be ready for that. We'll give you a little bit of time at the end of the hour to regroup for your next meeting. None of you will have audio. You're all muted. So if you have questions, you can type it into the questions console as part of the GoToWebinar console. So you can just type those in and I'll be keeping an eye on those and we'll answer them in real time, or I might answer them at the end if I don't see them in time. But either way, I'll get to all your questions. A little bit about our webinar today. I'll be giving you a very brief overview of Net at Work, who we are and what we do and why we do it the way we do. I'll be talking a little bit about what we mean when we say next generation. Everybody here probably has an ERP system. The question is, what's the difference between a next generation ERP system and maybe the one that you have today? This is a demonstration today, so I will be taking you through an overview of Sage Intacct, and just to manage expectations, with the 45-minute duration of this meeting today, it will be a very high-level overview of the application. But my goal is to at least give you a taste and whet your appetite. And if you would like to learn more and see more details, we'd be happy to follow up with you at whatever level and time frame that you would prefer. I'll wrap up with links to some resources that can help you get more information right away. So I said I was going to introduce myself. My name is Tom Thornton. I'm the practice director for Sage Intacct here at Net at Work. I've been in and around the Sage Intacct world for more than 10 years, been in and around the ERP world for more than 25 years, and have worked very closely and have been involved in and around about 150 different implementations of the Sage Intacct system. So I've seen it deployed in lots of different contexts and seen it be successful in lots of different types of organizations. So let's talk a little bit about Net at Work. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a professional services firm that focuses on technology for our clients, particularly their back office technology. We help you identify and implement and successfully deploy fully integrated, connected, cloud-based back office, including all the way up to being the virtual CIO for our clients. By doing this, we allow you to focus less on IT and the business systems that support your operations and focus more on the mission and vision of your business. The organizations we work with tend to grow faster, tend to be more profitable, tend to have better visibility and better experiences for both the people who work there and for their clients and customers that they serve. We have over 250 experts across the company, all over the country, all over North America, I should say. Even though it shows a picture of the US there, we have a very substantial Canadian presence as well. And we do have clients actually worldwide, not just in North America. What you can see from all of the logos down at the bottom is that we've been very successful with over 6,000 clients. We're consistently at the top of the industry leaderboards in terms of size and quality, in terms of implementing ERP systems. And you'll notice we're talking about Sage Intacct today, but we're also partners with all of the major mid-market vendors, including not just Sage, but also Oracle NetSuite, Acumatica, Salesforce, Microsoft, you name it. We've got the ability to work with and recommend the right solution for each client based on their unique circumstance. So I mentioned some of those brands. We work not just in ERP, which we're talking about today, but also in lots of other aspects of your back office technology situation. So whether you're talking about ERP or your CRM systems or your human resources and payroll systems or your general IT infrastructure, you name it, we can help you with all those things. And we bring lots of different vendor partnerships to bear that allows us to match you with the exact right solution. So when we're talking about next generation ERP, what is that and why should you care? Well, ERP has been evolving. When I got into the business, it was still character-based. We were still plugging numbers into green screens. I'm giving away my age, but it's come a long way. And the whole idea of how we consume business applications is changing, and our expectations in terms of what they should be doing for us and how easy they are to deploy and how easy it is to make them work together. These are all things that are becoming table stakes for how we think about ERP in the coming, in the coming decades. So the forward-thinking companies out there are really taking this seriously and saying, how can I turn this into a platform for growing and for making my organization more effective, as opposed to it just being the compliance department. So we'll talk more about that as we work through the presentation today. Now, when we talk about next generation ERP, there's some specific things and expectations that next generation ERP systems should be bringing to the table. And I'm not going to read all these bullets to you, but you can look them over and you'll get a copy of these slides later on. But the next generation applications are going to give you the scalability, the automations and workflows, the ability to work with your clients and customers the way that you need to work with them, visibility in the form of BI, analytics, interactive reports, and the ability to expand beyond your local market. These are all things that are hallmarks, and these are all things that you could and should expect from the next ERP system that you invest in. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about Sage Intacct and give you a quick overview. I'm going to talk about some highlights in the product that demonstrate some of these next generation capabilities, and then we'll do a quick Q&A. The diagram that you see on the screen right now is really kind of illustrating what the value proposition of Sage Intacct is. And really what they've done is they've built what they refer to as a best-in-class financials platform. And that best-in-class financials platform includes all of the main functions that you would expect your finance office to own. So in addition to the core financials like GL, AP, AR, cash management, that includes purchasing, sales order management, all of your financial reporting. Optionally, you can include things like fixed assets and budgeting and planning. And if you're a subscription-based business, the ability to manage contract and subscription billing. If you're a project-based business, having the ability to do projects. And so the flexibility of this back office financials best-in-class system is that it has the ability to be adapted to lots of different industries, as you see at the top of the diagram. I know we've got folks on the call today in a variety of industries, including not-for-profit, and the product has the flexibility because of its design, because of the architecture of the financial model, to adapt to lots of different situations. So that being said, I told you I was going to keep it short on the slides, and I did. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to flip over to the product. I think that might be the shortest trip I've ever made through slides at one of these presentations, so should write this down. All right, so what I'm going to show you next is logging into a live copy of Sage Intacct. So what you can see right now is that right now I'm connected through my browser to sageintacct.com. So like most cloud-based services, you would just connect to it through any standards compliant browser. I'm in Chrome, but it could have been Firefox or Safari or Edge or whatever your preference is. I click on the sign in button on the top right. It's going to prompt me for some login information. I'm going to log in as the right person. That's my goal anyway. Let's see. This looks like the right one. And when I sign in, it's going to take me to the starting point in the application that I've told it that I would like to start at each time I log into the system. So what we're looking at right now is a dashboard that is configured based on the supposition that I'm the controller of the organization. So I've got specific information being displayed to me that is relevant to either me individually or the role that I serve in the organization. It's completely customizable. I can reorganize this information however I want. If I've got permissions, I can drag and drop information to different places and just put it wherever I like. I can take a closer look at any of these items that's embedded in the dashboard, and it's fully interactive. It's not just a picture. I can drill down on numbers in here. So if I want to take a closer look at trade shows and exhibits, oops, I clicked on the wrong one. Let's try that a different way. Trade shows and exhibits. I can drill right into the general ledger detail all the way down to the individual journal entry that's rolling up into that. If this had media attached to it, I could view that as well directly from here. And the whole time I'm doing this drilling down through the dashboard, I'm still in the dashboard. It's popping a new browser window each time I'm doing any drilling, so I don't lose my context. You'll notice that the reports that are visible in the dashboard are fully formatted and contain not only the ability to drill down, but also the ability to conditionally format, perform calculations, do all sorts of things. I'll show you a little bit more about the report writer in a minute. But the idea here is that the dashboard is, in my case, my entry point into the system, and it can be configured however I would like it to be configured to show me the information I consider to be the most valuable. So let's talk about a little bit more about some of the components. A dashboard can contain a report like you see here, and that's as easy as taking a report that's been configured elsewhere in the report writer and simply telling the system that I'd like to add it to my dashboard, and it automatically embeds it. I can also create calculations in the form of these performance cards that you see at the top. And these performance cards are basically just a mini report that's calculating a number and displaying it for you. So if you have KPIs or other metrics that you would like to see each time you go in, this is reporting on live data. So each time I refresh this, it'll go back and see what's the most current posted information in my ledgers and recalculate it for me. It will tell me not only what the value is, but I can also assign conditional indicators on these to let me know whether or not they are trending in the right direction or they're a positive, indifferent, or negative number. Other things, I clicked on this a second ago, but I can also have my dashboard keep me informed about workflow transactions requiring my approval. I can have charts and graphs presenting data in different ways. And one other thing I like to point out is that you can actually build checklists into the system that you can embed in your dashboard. And let me just look at one of these. A checklist allows me to, in this case, I've got a month-end close checklist. I can create assignments. I can assign them to people. I can keep track of who's working on what's been completed, what's still outstanding. And as a controller, this is kind of important to me because this is how I can stay connected with my team and making sure that we're on track to get the books done on time. All right, that's just another little side trip I took you on there. But in any case, the idea is that I can get to what I need very fast through a dashboard, whether it's a report, whether it's a list, whether it's workflow transactions, whether it's a quick indicator. All of that stuff can be embedded in a dashboard. And there's other stuff too I'm not even going to have time to talk about today. Now, this is one example, but I might have a different view if I'm the CFO. The CFO might be more high level and want more visualization, more performance cards, and less detailed reports. And the idea here is that you can make these as elaborate and as extensive as you'd like them to be able to show you all of the information that you think is important to be tracking. One other thing, let me just leave it at that, just to make sure that we have time to get to everything. But one thing I do want to point out on this is that dashboards can also be filtered. And so dashboard level filters allow you to not only recalculate the information being displayed by date, but you can also filter in this case by location. So if I wanted to look at just my location 100, I could select that and click apply. And what it'll do is it'll automatically recalculate all of the items in the dashboard based on just that location. I can use any of the dimensions that I've set up for my chart of accounts to be a filter. So in this case, I've only set it up to be filtered by location, but I could edit the settings of this dashboard to add additional filters for departments, for projects, for whatever it is that you think makes sense to edit this, for filtering this dashboard. All right, I'm going to clear that filter. So you saw me just interacting with the dashboard so far, but this is a regular accounting system, and it does have, boy, that really, oh, I cleared my dates too. Let's change that. Here we go. All right, it is a regular accounting system, so I do have the ability to navigate around and do things the more traditional way. So the way that you do that is through this pull-down menu that you see here. All of the different applications that I've subscribed to in the Intacct system are accessed through this pull-down menu. So the sequence and whether or not you can see these things is controlled by user and their permissions. So if I, for instance, didn't have any reason to be interacting with the cash management module and I didn't have security to any of these items, it would not even appear on my menu. But let's just say for argument's sake, I want to look at AP. Everybody has AP. You'll see the menu is divided up into at least two sections. In this case, the all section is where my most frequently accessed tasks are. So data entry, record processing, reports, all accessed through this all tab. The setup tab is where I do things that are less frequent. So occasionally adding a new vendor or reassigning groups or creating new vendor types and things like that, things that you wouldn't do every day. But the idea is that everything that you can do can be accessed through these menus. If you see a little circle with a plus in it, that means add a new record. If I click on the name, it means take me to the list. So if I click on take me to the list, it'll show me my list of vendors and I can start filtering them. And that didn't work. Let's try this again. So just typing in the first few letters of a vendor's name will filter that list. If you're like us and you have thousands of vendors, being able to easily filter down by name, by vendor ID, by where they're located is really helpful. Clear that filter. Now, if I go back out to that menu again, and I click on the plus, what it'll do is it'll take me into, I clicked on the plus on the bill, and add a new record. So let me just take you through an example. Since I misclicked here anyway, I'm going to take you through an example of entering an AP invoice in the system. This is one way of a vendor invoice being created in the system. This would be, the use case would be an invoice that's being created by the finance AP team as opposed to it coming through the purchasing. But if you had a bill that's, let's just say a utility bill that comes through and you need to get that recorded in the system so that it can be paid according to your AP policy, you could come in here and record it this way. A couple things about the data entry here. You'll notice for invoices that it provides two dates. The first date is the vendor invoice date. The second date is your GL posting date for which indicates the fiscal period it's going to be landing in. Gives you two different dates because sometimes you want to use a different date for aging and for terms than you do for your financial, what financial period you want it to hit. So let me just, once again, what you just saw me do there is I selected my vendor. Let me go back and do that again. When I start typing a vendor's name, you'll notice with each character that I type in, it's limiting that drop-down list based on what I picked. So just putting in the first letter, it can help me find the vendor I'm looking for very quickly. Now, if I know their vendor ID, I can start typing that in and it'll do the same thing. But my vendor ID, vendor numbering scheme isn't super helpful. So if I don't know that off the top of my head, typing in the name is a lot easier. So let me just do that. It gave me a warning since I changed the value. But you'll notice that what it did is it automatically populated everything it could based on what's in the vendor master file. I have to give it a vendor bill number, so I'll put that in. I have some optional fields I can populate. Let's just say I have a copy of this invoice handy. So here it is. I'm going to drag it and drop it right onto my screen, and it will automatically attach it as supporting media for this transaction. I can attach multiple attachments to the same document. They can be any kind of file type I want them to be. So they can be in this case, it's an image file, but it could be a PDF. It could be an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or whatever you want it to be. You can attach those, and once again, it's as easy as dragging and dropping it from your desktop or from an Outlook email or wherever it's coming from. Down here in the entry grid, you'll see a couple of things I want to point out to you. One is that it's automatically populating the account based on my vendor selection, and the amount I put in, $2,000, it's going to give me the option. I don't have one set up in this database. I could choose an allocation, which would be a predefined split for that $2,000 to be spread across multiple combinations of locations, departments, projects, or however I'm choosing to set up my chart of accounts. Or I can just start typing in the locations and departments and other dimensions that matter for me here. So once I put that in, I have everything I need. I could post it. It says post because I'm the controller. I'm allowed to post my own transactions. If I did not have permission to post my own transactions and I had an AP approval workflows set up, that button would say submit instead of post. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but there is workflow throughout the system that can make sure that as you're entering AP invoices, as you're creating journal entries, that they can go through a formal submission and approval process before they are committed to the system. And you can configure that workflow to say who needs to approve what. And for instance, in AP, you can create dollar-based thresholds. If they're over a certain amount, you can have a different approval versus if it's under that amount. But anyway, putting a transaction into the system, this is not super unusual or different than other accounting systems. But once again, the context is that there's some really great data entry conventions in here, things to make it easy for you to go fast, easy for you to attach documents. Let me point out a couple other things while I'm here. Throughout the system, you always have this help and support button on the top right. When I click on the top right, you'll see that I have a help on this page link. When I click on that, it takes me to the help topic related to the page that I'm on. And this is fully hyperlinked so that you can easily navigate to related topics. But all of the things that I might want to do on this particular data entry form I'm on are documented here. And it makes it super easy as a new user of the system to stay productive as you're trying to remember all the stuff that you learned in training. I can tell you as somebody who's a frequent user of that function that I've taught myself about half of everything I know in the Sage Intacct system through using that help on this page button. It's really, really helpful. Now, there's also another thing here called the Help Center. The Help Center is more of a Google style help search. And I could come in here and say, how do I reverse a bill? And when I type that in, it brings up all the help topics that it felt like were relevant. I can click on the help topic. I say I need to reverse an unpaid bill. And sure enough, here's step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So once again, from a usability and ease of use standpoint, there's really, I haven't met another system out there that has made it as easy as Sage Intacct does for you to get in and do what you need to do, find the help that you need, and be productive as you're doing this. Now, I'm going to get out of this by just clicking cancel because I don't actually want to commit that. Now, one thing I didn't show you, when I was showing you the menu for accounts payable, I showed you all of these different things, and there's a really long list there. But as a new user, if my job was AP, I would want to use this overview instead. And what overview does is it just takes the most common tasks and reports and other activities that you might do related to AP and just puts it into a user-friendly, easy to consume diagram. So if I need to come in and add a new vendor, for instance, I can just come here, click on the vendor list, click add, and add a new vendor. And when I'm done with that, and I'm done with this, it takes me back out to the overview. Each of the different applications here in the menu structure has its own diagram. If my job was accounts receivable, I might want to start here. If I wanted to make it easy to navigate to this particular screen, you'll notice it has this little bookmark tab here. I can come in and I can say bookmark this page. Looks like I've done it before, right? Look at that, AR overview. So accounts receivables there, and this is unique by user. So each person that logs in has their own unique list of bookmarks, and it just makes it easier for you to quickly get to whatever screen in the system that you want to get to without having to click through the menu structure. All right, so I want to take you through and look at a couple of other things really quickly. One is I want to kind of walk through the example of a journal entry. So once again, I'm trying to keep this as fairly high level since I have all different kinds of organizations represented on this call. When I go to the general ledger, just like the other modules, all of those tasks that you might do as part of your monthly general ledger process are here. But let's just go through an example of creating a journal entry. When I go to create a journal entry, once again, the screen looks and feels very similar to the AP invoice entry screen, and that's on purpose. As much consistency and uniformity throughout the application as they can provide makes it easier to learn and helps you to understand what you're supposed to do where. When I come in, the first thing it's going to ask me for is what journal, and I'm going to select my general journal. The system is journal based, and the journals are basically a way of bucketing your journal entries for so that's easier for you to tell where it came from. So, you know, for instance, a journal entry might have come through the cash management module and be part of the cash receipts journal. But really, you can enter any journal, enter entries to any journal from this form, but most of them are going to be general journal entries. If this were an accrual entry, I could come in here and say, I want this to auto reverse on the 1st of next month. But if it's not, I don't have to use that. The description field can be whatever I want it to be. You'll notice this box is pretty big. The system will actually allow me to make this as pretty much as big as I want. So if I wanted to write a little novella here about what this journal entry was for, I could. But the word to the wise on that is that it will come into your reports that way too. So you want to be economical, but don't feel like you've got constraints because it will let you put a really long description in here. Some optional fields that are yours to use however you'd like to use. If you were doing an intercompany transaction where you needed to keep track of intercompany receivables and payables, or if you're a nonprofit who does fund accounting and you need to keep track of due to and due from entries between funds, the source entry is important because this is what drives the automation of that due to, due from. I'm not doing that on this entry, so I don't have to populate this. Attachments, we already saw that. We know how that works. And this is a silly little custom field that I created last time. I'll show you how we got there in just a minute. All right, so down here in the transaction entry grid, you'll see that it's exactly the same as it was before. Once again, for the account, I can just start typing the name of the account and it'll automatically give me a limited list. So let's just say this is a reclass of some other expense something. And I want to move it from location 100 to location 200. And this is 100, this is channel, I don't even know what channel it is. Let's do commercial, $1,000, 70, 100, 200. So I have a little journal entry that I've created here. You'll notice on this journal entry, I have workflow configured, and I don't have permission to post my own journal entry. So you'll notice up here it says submit. One of the cool things about that is it automatically generates a notification and goes into the workflow queue for whoever the manager is that's responsible for reviewing my work. So that's, once again, as you, if you want to have controls in place and you want to make sure that the right eyes are reviewing entries before they're getting into your ledgers, perfect for that. You'll also notice that every transaction in the system has a draft option. So if I'm doing a data entry, let's just say this wasn't a 2-line journal entry. Let's just say I was putting in a payroll entry or something like that that's 75 lines long. and I'm not done with it, but it's time to go. I can draft it, come back to it tomorrow, pull it up. If I draft it, it doesn't have to be in balance, doesn't have to meet all of the data validation requirements. So once again, lots of ease of use and practical capabilities built right into the system. So like that other entry, I'm going to back out, cancel, and come back to dashboards. And I'm going to go to where I started. So I'm back at the controller dashboard. And what I want to spend the last few minutes here talking about is reporting. So the biggest win for most people who are moving to next-gen packages like Sage Intacct is the capability to get the data back out of the system without having to rely on third-party tools. So one of the things that seemed to be an epidemic among legacy ERP platforms is that even if they could collect the data the way that you needed to collect it at the level of detail that you wanted to collect it, you could rarely get the reports that you needed from the system, and certainly not from the system out of the box. And so in the legacy ERP world, there's a huge proliferation of third-party tools that would connect at the data level to the accounting database. And then if you had the knowledge of SQL and Crystal reports and other tools like that, that you could potentially build an automated report that had what you liked. But it was going to require a high level of technical knowledge. It was going to require a lot of, potentially a lot of cost if you were having to outsource that work and buy additional tools to do the reporting. So the reporting that you see in Sage Intacct is native to the product and part of the core system. There's not a report writing module for doing financial reports. That's standard. There are some advanced report writing modules that are available that might be useful for you, but to do custom reporting, custom financials, and all of the standard reports that you would expect to get out of a system like Sage Intacct, that's all part of the core system. So I want to focus on this particular one that we're looking at right here. So first of all, I have on every one of these reports in my dashboard, I have this magnifying glass icon I can click on. And what that'll do is it'll open up a different view of the report full screen. And so if I want to look at this a lot closer, I can then just use my zoom on my browser to zoom in close. And once again, like we were talking about, we could come in and I can drill down on these values and analyze and figure out, okay, where did this number come from? And see the journal entry that resulted in that particular transaction. Another thing I can do is you'll notice that it's got this option to export to Excel built right into every single report in the system. So if I click on that, you'll notice that it automatically downloaded an Excel copy for me. And when I open that up and drag that onto my screen, you can see that this is exactly what you see is what you get, and has all of that same information on that screen. So if I wanted to annotate this or incorporate information from outside the system or whatever it is I would do out in Excel, I can do that way. I can email reports. I can schedule those reports to be automatically emailed. One of the really cool things about the scheduling is that you can have different kinds of triggers for scheduling a report. So for instance, instead of having it scheduled to go out on a particular date, you can schedule it to automatically generate a report when you officially close your books. That's one trigger that you can use for automating the distribution of reports. Now, one thing I want to do differently now, oops, let's back out a little bit here, is that instead of drilling down on that, what I want to do is I want to edit this, because what I would like to do is I'd like to see some adjustments to this report. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up the financial report writer. And the financial report writer is where I modify all of the settings that dictated the appearance of that report for you. So I can determine the columns and rows. And so here's the breakdown by rows for this particular P&L. The columns that are included. So you can see I've got columns for actuals, budgets, budget difference in dollars, budget percentage difference. And if I wanted to do computations and other filters, I have control over all of the information flowing into this report. So one thing I wanted to do is to kind of show you how easy it is. If I look at this report in its current form, I've got a column for actuals, a column for budget, just like we were looking at there. But maybe for my actuals, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see that broken out by my locations, not just in aggregate, but I want a separate column for each of my locations. How hard is it to do that? Well, it's not hard at all. So if I go into the configuration of column 2, which is my actuals column, you'll notice that there's an option down here called expand by. And when I click on that, I can say, I want to expand this by my locations. And I click set. And I'll preview what the change does to the output of my report. So now you can see that instead of a single actuals column, I've got 3 actuals columns representing each of my locations, and then a subtotal column for all locations. And it's still showing me my budget difference, and my percentage variance. So it's extremely easy to start doing this kind of analytical slicing and dicing of your financial activities directly within the system here. Let's tinker some more. I can not only do that at the column level, but let me go look at that again. Let me see where I've got some. Maybe I want to look at this G&A line a little differently. Right now, it looks like in my general and administratives, I've got like finance charges, travel, all sorts of stuff rolling up into that. Well, I don't want to see it that way. I want to see it broken out. I want to know which department is responsible for that G&A expense. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to come back to my rows. I'm going to scroll down to G&A expenses. And I'm going to say I want to expand this by dimensions. And it's already selected department for me. I click OK. And I go to preview the report again. So instead of breaking out G&A according to all those different categories that it had before, now it's showing me exactly which department is incurring those G&A expenses. Now, if I wanted to drill down into G&A expenses, I still can, but for the presentation that I've selected, it's breaking it out according to a different dimension. And this is just a little bit of a taste to show you exactly how much control you have over the output of your reports, down to the individual row level, at the individual column level in every report, through the point and click interface without having to write any SQL or no Crystal reports or SEI or any other outside report writer. You can come in and tailor the reports to not only show you the information that you want, but to be completely interactive for drill down purposes, to be able to include conditional formatting. This is one example using the red and green highlights, but there's others like spark lines and other arrow indicators and things like that that you can incorporate through the financial report writer, all part of the standard product, all part of the core Sage Intacct. And that's all I have to say about that. So there's a million other things I could show you in the financial report writer, but I want to stop there for the moment so that if you have questions, you're free to type those in through the questions console, and I will try to get to those as time allows. And it looks like we do have a question, so let me do that. The question is, can you import data from other systems into Intacct? And the answer is absolutely yes. So how I'd like to answer that is that there really is anything that you could enter into the system through the user interface, you can import it from another system. And in many cases, there's a pre-built import template for that kind of data. So common things like journal entries and things like that, you can bring directly from other systems. But you can also import things like master files of vendors, customers, items, employees. You can import statistical information. So if you have operational data that you want to bring in that to be reported on side by side with your accounting data, you can bring in that in the form of statistical journal entries through an import. So there's just, like I said, anything that you would expect to enter through the user interface, you can enter, you can import into the system. Now, importing is just one way. An alternate is there's a fully documented open web services API available in Sage Intacct as well. So if you have another application that you would like to interface with Sage Intacct and make that automated, the web services allows you to make that automatic. I will say, since we're talking about it, Sage Intacct does have a robust partner marketplace. So if we go to the Sage Intacct website and you go to partners and click on marketplace partners, you'll notice that there's all kinds of vendors out here. So let me just type in AP automation and see what happens. All the main AP automation vendors have seamless interfaces to Sage Intacct right out of the box. And so whether you're using Nexonia or MineralTree or Concur or you name it, there's an existing configurable integration that could be set up so that you don't have to mess around with importing and exporting data from one system to another. So it's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because I didn't really talk much about that here. But in a best-in-class scenario where you using Sage Intacct as your best-in-class financials, you're going to want to bring in other best-in-class applications for payroll, for AP automation, for customer portals, for you name it. And they can all be configured to seamlessly integrate with Sage Intacct. Last thing I'm going to show you is an example of customization. So if I have permission, and let me go back to AP and pretend I'm going to enter an AP bill. Let's just say there's some information I would like to collect on my AP bill that's not already here. Assuming I have permission to do so, I can come in here and customize it. So I'm going to click on this to go into the customization services for my AP bill. I'm going to roll down to fields. I'm going to create a new field on my AP bill. I'm going to make it a text box. I want to call this Tom's demo example field. I have no imagination. I want it to be 60 characters. I can provide a description if I want to, but I don't have to. I can click next. I can say if it's required. I can specify where I want it to be. Let's put it in the additional information section. And click done. So now when I come back to enter an AP bill, where did I put it? I put it on the additional information tab. There's this additional example field. I could have put it there, or I could have had it here in the body if I had specified the other option. But the idea is that anywhere in the system, if I want to add a custom field, I can do it on any type of transaction. I can do it on all my master files. I can do it anywhere where data is being captured in the system. I have complete control through customization services by jumping into that object definition to create custom fields throughout. Now, I do want to point out a few other things to you. As I go over to platform services, you'll see there's a couple of things here that you can configure that I'm going to speak to, I'm not going to show. But there are two super valuable things that I can configure. One is called smart rules. Smart rules are validations that you create that ensure that the data being entered into the system meets certain conditions. So for instance, if I wanted to make sure that there were two different values, in this case for location and department, that should never be used together, I could create a smart rule that says if somebody tries to put those two on the same record or the same debit or credit line, that it throws an error message. That's one example, but and there's other ways to accomplish that in Sage Intacct, but you could create that rule. The second one is a smart event, which is essentially a trigger. And a smart event basically tests for a condition just like a smart rule does, but instead of just giving you a message, it can actually perform an action or an event as a result of that. So for instance, I can say, hey, if anybody ever codes an AP invoice to a particular department, let's just say the finance department, I can say, okay, then I want to get an email notification with the details of that invoice. A smart event can be configured to do that, to where it automatically, when the condition is met, generates an email that includes information from the record where that event occurred. So once again, these customization services are extremely powerful. I can take the existing behavior of the application and extend it through extra fields. I can control data entry and control data quality through smart rules. I can improve the quality of data, automatically append records, create notifications and alerts using smart events. And once again, everything I just mentioned to you is part of the core Intacct system. It's not an add-on module or third-party product. All right, so we're running up right against our time on this presentation. So what I want to do is to wrap up by saying I appreciate your attention today. I hope it was intriguing. I realize it's not nearly a close enough look for you to really understand everything that Intacct could or should be doing for you. I assure you that learning more will be valuable. So if there's anything that we can do to help you get more information, you will be getting a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording of this event after this webinar concludes, and that will include contact information. You will inevitably get a follow-up call from somebody from our team asking you for feedback on the webinar, and you can ask them for additional information if you like. You can also tell them to go jump in the lake if you don't want them to call you. But it's once again, I hope you found it valuable, thought it was interesting, and if there's anything at all I can do to help you on your journey to learn more about Next Gen ERP, please let me know. Thanks so much for coming today.